Welcome to Chef Leadership Academy. I'm Professor Jagdish Sheth. This presentation is all about the next frontiers of research in marketing strategy. Marketing strategy, I believe, is going through midlife crisis right now with the rise of consumer behavior as a standalone discipline and a huge popularity of marketing analytics. But as marketing strategy comes out of its midlife crisis, I believe it will find its roots back into managerial marketing. In other words, focusing on doing research on issues like pricing, issues like omnichannel, issues, for example, something that has to do with branding and brand management, and what I call reverse marketing. In the beginning, I will give a brief history of managerial marketing, where the marketing strategy began and how it evolved into what we call competitive strategy, marketing strategy, strategic marketing, those words. They vary by different scholars, and then suggest the future opportunities. So let's start by showing the first slide. The marketing strategy or managerial marketing really evolved in the 50s and immediately followed what happened in economics, which was managerial economics. Many of the economists who are working in the marketing area began to generalize managerial economics into managerial marketing. Marketing practice was more descriptive before that one, what it is. And it began to become more and more prescriptive, which means what it should be as a manager, and managerial marketing began to evolve into a standalone discipline of its own. It reached a peak in the 80s with the rise of consumer behavior and as a standalone discipline. Managerial marketing morphed into marketing strategy with a focus on competition and corporate strategy. In fact, the real change that took place from the traditional managerial marketing with an emphasis on 4 Ps of marketing to strategy, competitive strategy, or marketing strategy is the PIMS database. This was a database that General Electric had organized among all the other large corporations to submit the data on marketing expenditures like advertising, distribution, market share, etc. GE eventually outsourced it or gave it to Harvard University, Harvard Business School, and we had hundreds of papers doing research on correlating market share with profitability in the guise of present competition primarily. So competition became very strong, not only in the PIMS database, but eventually with the rise of a very popular book by Michael Porter called Competitive Strategy. So corporate strategy began to mingle with the marketing strategy, and that rose the whole new area of what we call marketing strategy today. Let me just show you the different frameworks and different domains that we have focused on in marketing strategy historically. In the 50s, the focus was on 4 Ps of marketing. It came in the literature primarily by Jerry McCarthy. In his textbook, which was very popular at that time, he brought the framework of 4 Ps of marketing, which I'm told originally came from Procter & Gamble, and Jerry McCarthy's professor at Minnesota was teaching that framework in his classes, and he actually brought that into the textbook, became very popular. Everything was around 4 Ps of marketing. What should a manager do with his pricing? What should he do with his product promotion? What should he do, in fact, with distribution channels? And we began to have separate books even on channels of distribution as a standalone courses. Immediately, it was followed by segmentation, targeting, and positioning, STP. This is very popular even today. All of the marketing communication is around that whole definition of which segment do you want to target, whether it's a demographic segment, psychographic segment, or whatever it is, and how do you not only identify the segment, target in terms of channels of distribution, in terms of, for example, pricing, in terms of product branding, etc., and how do you position your brand to target into that segment. This begins to change, as I mentioned, to competitive strategy, especially with that PIMS research that I talked about. In the 70s, competitive strategy was the hot button. In the 80s, it begins to shift toward focuses on services marketing, which became a standalone discipline by itself within the managerial marketing or marketing strategy area. And that's very understandable because services were the largest segment of the GDP, largest consumer market were more services than products. Our knowledge came from packaged goods industries like soaps and detergents, and that was not considered appropriate in the services sector. So we evolved a whole new discipline which did very, very well. It then shifts in the 90s toward two areas. One is relationship marketing, where I actually led the discipline in terms of creating excitement about relationship marketing and why we should focus on that one, which has morphed into CRM, more data analytics type. The other one that has sustained very well has been the market orientation. I think the market orientation framework has had a huge impact on the discipline, has lasted more than 2 decades. It is still a very popular framework, but as the discipline begins to move to our newer dynamic areas, marketing is contextual after all anyhow, and the 3 areas that are emerging in terms of excitement of scholars to do research is, first of all, social media marketing. How do you use the traditional word of mouth concepts, influencers, especially in the new world of social media, where you may have a Facebook, which is a 2 billion people all over the world? And what are the impacts of social media now in creating a buzz or creating a loyalty program for that matter, or in actually diffusing the ideas much faster, much quicker on a global basis? So social media marketing is on the rise right now. The second area is what I have again strongly advocated, which is emerging markets. Since the future growth of markets is in emerging markets like China and India, we are shifting our focus from our knowledge in advanced economies to more and more knowledge appropriate for the emerging markets. And in the process, we are redefining the discipline quite a lot. For example, the concepts of affordability and accessibility become much more important than the concepts of acceptability and awareness or promotion, etc. I think there's a huge change that is taking place by focusing on emerging markets. The concept of diffusion of innovation makes no sense in emerging markets. It's really more democratization of innovation. So we have an exciting new research taking place by focusing on emerging markets in marketing strategy or managerial marketing. And one in the horizon that is going to become from peripheral to core, it's a matter of time, but in about a decade we'll be talking about, is a societal marketing or marketing for the betterment of society in general. It not only matches with the new millennium goals by United Nations, triple bottom line as we call it, people, profit, and planet. I think mindful consumption as an idea. There are many, many ideas emerging, but I think marketing for a better world is going to become a dominant paradigm, just like services industry became a dominant paradigm in the 80s, and market focus or market orientation in the 90s, or relationship marketing, I think is going to happen with societal marketing. While these are the ones that are continuing now, looking way into the future, I see the following areas that will become very exciting for doctoral research as well as for academic scholars. The first area, and I think it's very fascinating, is what I call discipline of selling. Selling is eternal. Selling is dating back all the way to the beginning of civilization. Marketing comes later in many ways. Selling is more universal. If you generalize away from products and services for commercial purposes, Selling is true in nonprofit. Selling is true in social interactions. But it is not a discipline as yet. It has been a lot more a practice, a profession. For the first time, we find that there are possibilities of coming out with conceptual theories, constructs, frameworks, and actually doing empirical research. And to me, discipline of selling will rise as many universities begin to create standalone centers on selling and sales management, or have a standalone special interest groups within the academic organizations like American Marketing Association. Along with selling, another area that is becoming much more interesting is what I call the discipline of pricing. Pricing has been relegated in marketing because we believe we compete on a non-price basis. Differential advantage, differentiation, we should not be commoditized. But with the new online activity in marketing, e-commerce approaches, pricing is becoming much more fascinating. Whether it's a behavioral pricing, psychological aspects, or pricing, dynamic pricing, for example, pricing as a very strong science of pricing is going to come back. We do have the old literature quite a lot about psychological pricing. When you price 99 cents versus when you price $1.05, is there a difference? Are there step functions like that? A lot of research has been done in practice, but we really still don't have true scientific research. And to me, pricing is another major area of future research opportunity, and I expect significant number of scholarly publications in the pricing research. We do have legends like Kent Monroe, who has done a great job in the early days, just noticeable difference, psychological pricing, but this is really much more anchored to online pricing research. The third area that's growing equally fast and will get databases and more empirical research is going to be omnichannel research. As the brick and mortar and click world are getting together, as the two are converging rather than diverging. So while Amazon may be online, is getting into brick and mortar companies like Walmart are getting into online. So omni-channel, in other words, it's like a pizza industry. You can either dine in, which is like a typical department store. You can have a carry out, which means I place the order, pick it up, or I can deliver at home. Any one of the three approaches are taking place. So omni-channel research is rising enormously, again, because of the availability of the data. So I think that is going to become a significantly new, exciting area of research. Fourth area of research really began in the early days in a business-to-business, B2B marketing, where online ordering began to happen, where companies' procurement function became automated. Rather than send the paperwork out, purchase order, get the invoice and the accounts payable, companies began to order things online, such as Cisco Systems received most of its orders online. Dell Computers received more of its orders online. Technology companies in some fashion. But today, e-procurement is the common platform when you research the procurement department in a company. This then leads to now with retail, consumer, e-commerce, everything is online. Our airline tickets, we order it online now. There is no other way generally. We do financial data. Stock market is all online now more and more. Many of the agencies in insurance are getting online now. So online is the mainstream now, and as more and more transactions begin with the customer placing the order, it creates now a reverse marketing. Concept was actually advocated by a couple of great scholars out of Canada. They wrote a book called Reverse Marketing, but it was quite ahead of its time. Today it is in the mainstream. And therefore, many universities or business schools are now combining marketing with supply chain management. So marketing may become more and more supply chain management, which means once they taking a customer approach or customer centricity approach, working backwards and fulfilling that order in time. So you have the pre-purchase activity, which is the placing of the order. During the order fulfillment, the product arrives, you have a notification. Today, when I order anything online, I'm notified my order is placed, confirmed. I'm notified when will I get it, for example. I'm notified it has arrived, and I'm notified somebody signed it for it. Whether it comes by UPS or Federal Express or whatever the courier mechanism is out there. Very fascinating. Reverse marketing, I think, has a huge potential to enhance or expand the scope of marketing ever before what we have seen. Next area, which is more traditional but coming in a very different way, is branding and brand management. The research here seems to be and will amplify the valuation of the brands, not just creating the brands, differential advantage of the brand, but brand as a standalone asset in its valuation, I think is going to become a lot more interesting as we move forward into the 21st century. So branding and brand management is my one more area that I see will see more publications arising in ways that we never imagined before possible. Because branding may not be in the physical world. Branding may be in the virtual world. You do have virtual communities. I can place brands into those communities. My brand may be totally digital, has no physical presence of any kind. Those are very exciting new areas of research, I believe. And the last area is sales promotion, but online sales promotion. Online keeps track of everything. And therefore, I can have a direct association between my online sales promotion and market response, demand response, and I can eventually calculate based upon cost allocation return on my investment for each campaign, or even each ad that I place, or each promotion that I do. So the whole advertising and promotion area, more exciting would be online advertising, such as advertising on social media like Facebook, or on Google, or on whatever the advertising, LinkedIn, whatever the advertising social media platforms are, or I can advertise on my own websites. This is mind-boggling. I have articulated in some of the presentations that the world of online will change our whole definition of media. Today, media has no channel constraints. Broadcast had limited channels. Print had limited distribution channels or space. We came out with cable, which expanded the number of channels or capacity of basically video communication, broadcast style. Today, in the world of YouTube, I can have infinite channels. So the old saying by Marshall McLuhan, medium becomes the message, now it changes totally where medium becomes the messenger in many ways. I can easily have a separate Walmart channel, a separate Target channel, a separate, in fact, Amazon YouTube channel, a separate, in fact, Macy's channel, any retailer, any manufacturer, and I can put a lot of stories about my company, new product introductions, offer sales, only limited or specific to my own YouTube channel. There is no capacity limit anymore. We are in a world of unlimited channels or media out there possible. Streaming is all here pretty much. I think that's an exciting area for research. So marketing strategy, as I mentioned in the beginning, needs a new perspective beyond competitive strategy and market orientation. Marketing strategy is experiencing midlife crisis as I see it now, and reverse back to its roots into 4 P's of marketing. If you look at my presentation about next research frontiers in marketing strategy, most of them are anchored toward the 4 P's of marketing. In other words, our old framework of product, promotion, place, and price are coming back, but coming back from a scientific research viewpoint and more empirical research than sheer practice. I think it's very exciting. And one of the areas is word of mouth communication, and the other area that is reverse marketing, right? So let me conclude. Marketing strategy began with a focus on managerial marketing with the development of 4 P's of marketing and segmentation, targeting, and positioning. This is all in the 50s to early 60s. It morphed into competitive strategy in the 70s and 80s with large-scale research such as PIMS database. It shifted to services marketing as a focal area and market orientation and relationship marketing all through the 90s and even today. In the new millennium now, 3 areas are emerging as a focal area for marketing strategy, domain specific. The first one has to do with emerging markets, which is a very large scale engagement because emerging markets are so different from advanced economies. Most of the competition is unbranded competition. And how do you compete there, or how do you convert unbranded consumption to branded consumption becomes very exciting. Lots of constraints in emerging markets. Focus is on accessibility and affordability. So to me, that's very exciting. And the other area that's growing very fast is social media. Social media has taken over the world. So from a managerial marketing viewpoint, understanding the dynamics of social media and how one can utilize social media, which is really word of mouth communication in many ways, but on a global basis and instantly. The internet and social media has global reach, and it's a very rich medium. I can have a text messages, voice messages, video messages, and I can do quite a lot than what in word of mouth days, in brick and mortar days I could do. So that's very interesting. And the last area, which is just emerging, it's on the horizon, is marketing for a better world, or what we call societal marketing. That was a focus with the rise of consumerism. At that time, lots of us were doing research on societal marketing, marketing for non-profit sectors like health, for example, population control, anything that was really not for private sector consumption, public services by and large. It is now coming back in a very different way, where the notion is that how can we have marketing for better world in the for-profit sector, which means redefining the corporate objective from just the shareholder value to what Michael Porter and his colleagues have called as shared value, or what we have called as conscious capitalism, thinking about not only delivering the profits, but protecting the planet, the environment, and also enriching or getting the potential out of people. So people, planet, profits as a triple bottom line is a new millennium goal by United Nations. I think it'll come into the marketing domain more and more, and we'll see scholars doing research in that area. The next frontiers of research are, while this is going on, what I call discipline of selling and science of pricing, omnichannel research, online sales promotion, reverse marketing, and branding and brand management. These are the areas that I see in my crystal ball, in some fashion, if you wanted to call it, about very exciting future areas. Nice thing is that young scholars of tomorrow, top academic scholars now, there is an endless opportunity of doing research in marketing strategy. Marketing strategy, while it is going through midlife crisis, will definitely revitalize itself by going back to its roots, which is really managerial marketing, or 4 P's of marketing. And as I mentioned, many of the areas that I see as future research opportunities are all anchored to each of the 4 Ps of marketing. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much.